Thank you for coming, Steve. Steve has been very, very important to me, not only because he's endorsed me, but because he is the kind of man that he is, and he is one of those men of principle. And he's been someone that has helped me with regard to some of the most crucial issues that we're dealing with today. And I also want to recognize my son Dan and my daughter-in-law Mara and my granddaughter Lindsay, who are here from Nashville, Tennessee. They got pretty good seats here this morning. So with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we have some questions for the senator? And if it could be a short question so that we don't have silence, and then I will repeat the question.
Got a question for you. Do you think line item bids will ever go through Congress? Stop this big reform bill that's going on?
Okay, do we think that what again is?
Line item veto.
Will the line item veto ever get through Congress?
I don't know, but I'm going to do everything that I can to help it. When I was there, I voted for it. One version of it was struck down as unconstitutional, but I think it can be reworked to make it constitutional. And I think it would be a very, very important tool for the president to use. Now the president's got to veto the whole bill. Frankly, I think the president should have vetoed some of these bills earlier on and kind of put down a benchmark as to what he would accept and what he wouldn't accept. But in the future, if a president could pick out these pork barrel items and these other things that are not justified, and say at least you're going to have a separate debate and discussion publicly on these things, and it's going to have at least a majority vote on that particular item alone in order for me to sign it, which would be an exercise of a line item veto provision. I think we'd be much, much better off for it. We got to do everything we can to control spending, not only just because of the pork barrel projects that we hear so much about, but because of a lot of other spending and a lot of other ways that eventually is going to bankrupt this next generation if we don't change our ways. We're on line to do that right now, and nobody's talking about it enough as to what effect it's going to have down the road on our economy and on our next generation.
Let's take a question from this direction. Yes, ma'am.
What makes you unique from all the other Republican
candidates? What makes me unique from the other candidates? Well, besides being taller and better looking, well, I am taller anyway. I mean, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. I've had a varied and unusual career, and I'm not going to say it makes me better than anybody else, but we're all unique. And everybody that's running, every human being is unique. But what makes me unique in the context of this presidential campaign, I think, has to do with in large part, my background. As I said, I've seen my country from a lot of different vantage points. I've seen my country's people and know my country's people from a lot of different vantage points. As a very young man, I worked in a factory in my little hometown of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and finally went barred and worked our way through school and became a federal prosecutor. I was on the Watergate committee, counsel for that committee when I was 30 years of age. I served in the United States Senate. I had never run for political office before. I considered myself a citizen politician. I put term limits on myself. I lived up to those term limits. While I was there, I was a strong, consistent conservative. We were able to balance the budget and cut taxes and reform welfare and fight for conservative common sense judges. Had a 100% pro-life voting record. I've been called upon at various times in my life by people I respect. Howard Baker called on me when I was 30 years old, as I pointed out, for Watergate. Condoleezza Rice called me after I left the United States Senate to head up an advisory board of distinguished Americans to advise the State Department on matters of international security. The President of the United States called me when he needed help getting a conservative judge through the Senate confirmation process. And now his name is Chief Justice John Roberts, and I think he'll be one of the great Chief Justices of our time. When I was in the United States Senate, I served on the Intelligence Committee. I traveled the world meeting with foreign leaders, some friends, some foes. I met with Musharraf, who's in the headlines, of course, today, in the aftermath of that tragedy that happened in Pakistan. And we could talk a long time about that and what it means to us. But I've been there. I was the Republican counsel. I was a Republican floor manager for the Homeland Security bill when we passed that when I was in the United States Senate. I like to think that has something to do with the fact that we haven't been attacked again since September 11. I concentrated on matters of national security. I was chairman of the Governmental Affairs Committee, which has jurisdiction over issues of proliferation, weapons of mass destruction, as well as several other things. So I have a personal background of the real world. I have a professional political service background of dealing with the most important issues facing our country today, both foreign and domestic, and I've had an opportunity to serve since I left the United States Senate. Those things didn't get quite as much attention as Law and Order got. But even that is kind of unique. I was practicing law after Watergate. A young woman came to me. She was chairman of the parole committee, Pardons and Parole Committee in Tennessee, and she said, "I'm very suspicious of what's going on. The governor's office is pressuring us." She wouldn't go along with the program. She thought that some wrong things were happening. Turns out she was right. They fired her. She came to me. I represented her. We sued the governor. We got a jury trial. We beat the governor of the state of Tennessee before a jury. The governor eventually, they found out they were selling pardons and paroles and liquor licenses and so forth in the governor's office. He eventually went to jail. His legal counsel and others went to jail. They made a movie about